are St. Maarten. You are St. Maarten.
The URSM, the Unified Resilient St. Maarten Movement, being a political movement, will be hosting a weekly radio program called You Are St. Maarten, every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Radio Mix 94.7 FM. I myself, Dr. Messalina, the political leader of URSM, will be hosting this radio program in which current issues, actualities and general topics will be discussed with the people of St. Maarten. So join us every Wednesday on Radio Mix 94.7 for our radio show You Are St. Maarten.
You are St. Maarten. You are St. Maarten.
Dear people of St. Maarten, good evening. Welcome to your radio program You Are St. Maarten on Radio Mix 94.7 FM. As you know, the URSM, the political movement, the Unified Resilient St. Maarten Movement, is broadcasting on a weekly basis a radio program on Radio Mix 94.7 FM every Wednesday from 6 to 7 FM. I myself, Dr. Messalina, will be your host in this radio program, and as you know, I'm the surgeon serving the people of St. Maarten as a medical doctor specialist since 1999, and as of the 10th of October 2021, I'm the political leader and the founder of the URSM that will contest the upcoming parliamentary elections for country St. Maarten. As you know, the URSM is putting the people and the country above self and believe that educating and informing the people is the best way to move a country forward. That is hence the reason that the URSM is having this radio program on a weekly basis on the Wednesdays from 6 to 7 to come with topics to educate the people for them to be well aware about all developments going on in their country. We are presenting a weekly program in which current topics, community developments and issues, and general matters concerning the people of St. Maarten are discussed. This week I thought that I'm going to speak a little with you all about the status of the autonomy that we are in now with country St. Maarten, and how the future has to be or will be in the way that we are moving with this country. As you know, since October 10th, 2010, we are an autonomous country here in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Initially, we were all part of the Netherlands Antilles, consisting of 6 islands, being Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire, Sint Maarten, Saba, and Statia. And then Aruba went out of the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles, leaving 5 islands with the continuation of the common ground of the Netherlands Antilles. At a certain moment, politically wise, a choice has been made for the other islands like Curaçao and Sint Maarten to become a autonomous country like Aruba in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the smaller islands being Bonaire, Sint Eustatius and Saba decided that they would like to be part of the Netherlands as a best island, as they call it. Since 2010, St. Maarten is an autonomous country in the kingdom. But it remains a challenge for us to really carry the responsibilities to also in practice call ourselves a autonomous country. And there are a few issues in our country that makes it very, very difficult for us to get a full-blown autonomous status as it's written in the statuten of the kingdom. First of all, we have to realize that we are and we will remain a vulnerable small island in the Caribbean for the following reasons. Actually, because of the fact that we are a small populace here in the Caribbean, surrounded by the sea. It's a very small surface that we have called Sint Maarten, Saint Maarten, and even this small island is again divided on a French side, and a Dutch side. So actually the populace of this country is not so big, and actually for you to become resilient in many aspects, sometimes it's good for you to have a large populace, for you to be able to have resilient policies to make your country a autonomous country. What we see also is that what makes Sint Maarten a vulnerable country is that not only that we have a small populace, but that we have also a low GDP, a low gross domestic product. We have to realize also that we do not have export in this country. We do not have agriculture products that we can export. We are not an industrialized country that are making other types of products that we could export to contribute to our revenues. And further, we will remain always a vulnerable island because of our position in the hurricane belt. And as you have experienced also, we will always be a vulnerable country when it comes to disasters like a pandemic or a natural disaster, as we have had a few of them in the past, and the recent one that we had was of course Hurricane Irma. What also contributes to our vulnerability is that we have a one-pillar economy in this country that is completely relying on the tourism sector. But realizing that we are still an autonomous country, we still have a billion debt in this community, in this country. And as you know, if you have a huge debt, it's very, very difficult to have the necessary budget to finance developments and products in this community that will push the prosperity for one and all in the country. So, in general, this autonomy that we have has a few factors in it that makes it very difficult for us to carry out the autonomy as it is described in the Charter of the Kingdom. Further, I have a theory that to be an autonomous country, you have to have 5 strong pillars that carry this community. And the 5 pillars that I have mentioned many times already in the radio interviews that contribute to making a country autonomous are actually 1, the airport, secondly, the harbor, the 3rd one, your utility company of your country, the 4th one, your telecommunication, and the 5th one, your healthcare, being in this case your hospital care for your country. And if you do not have these 5 pillars well organized and firm established in your country, you will not be able to actually execute a way of governing this country that respects the rules of autonomy. Because of the fact that these 5 pillars are insufficient, being the airport, the harbor, the utility, our telecommunication, and our hospital care, means that constantly you have some challenges with your autonomy and still have to actually ask cooperation from other partners in the kingdom, and especially in this case, the Netherlands. As I told you, the 5 pillars that I mentioned just now are an absolute necessity for you to have and govern a autonomous country with success. So if we want in the nearby future to have a good autonomous country, we will have to work on the finalization of our Juliana International Airport. We will have further to execute future vision plans to increase the capacity and the contribution of a harbor to our economy. We will have to reorganize our utility company GEPE that, as you know, is now in very big problems, and we will have to work to improve our telecommunication for our country. After having these 5 pillars fortified with the vision for them to be firm enough to carry an autonomous country, there are 2 more pillars that we have to work on to make this country a stable country that can be promising in prosperity for the people that lives in it. First of all, we will have to work on our education, and we will have to work on our justice system to actually have a justice system that stabilizes a democratic country as country St. Maarten. We are speaking constantly of a autonomous country, but there are a few questions that you have to ask yourself once you pretend that you are an autonomous country. First of all, we call ourselves, and we are on paper, and that is also correct if you go through the Charter of the Kingdom, we are an autonomous country, but in a sense, being very critical with ourselves, we have never asked ourselves our vision on education for this autonomous country called St. Maarten. Another one is that we have never asked ourselves the level of healthcare that we would like to have for this autonomous country. A third one is that we are pretending that we are an autonomous country, but we have never thought about a financial model to finance our healthcare for the people of this country. We are calling ourselves an autonomous country, but we do not have a policy vision on garbage collection and garbage processing for country St. Maarten. We are also calling ourselves autonomous and even going a step further without crystallizing the true concept of autonomy. We are already screaming that we want to be independent, and I believe that every people, every country has the right one day to be independent. We, the USM, believe in that too. But the USM is a very realistic political movement that wants first to fortify the concept of autonomy in the kingdom, create the conditions for a resilient country and a resilient community. And once that is established, there will be time and space to start working on independence for country St. Maarten. For example, we will have to ask ourselves if we want to call ourselves an autonomous country in the kingdom. I really believe that it's time now, without playing politics, to think about the monetary unit for our autonomous country, Sint Maarten. I have been following a development that I have to be honest that I'm not seeing our representation in Parliament making a statement on it or having a stance on it. And that is what recently has been participated to us in the newspaper, that they are busy now in the process of introducing a Caribbean guilder for only two small islands in the world, being Curaçao and Sint Maarten. Honestly, deep in my heart, knowing my great commitment and love for my country and for my people, I do not believe that this Caribbean guilder will have any additional value in increasing the prosperity for the individuals in country Sint Maarten. And I'm there to say that because Dr. Messalina with the URSM is not in this for political games or for themselves. They are in this race because they really believe that they will get the mandate from the people of Sint Maarten to be part of the upcoming government. And once we are part of this upcoming government, I really believe that we will have to stand still on the way forward concerning our monetary unit that we want to proceed with in this country. Actually, this Caribbean guilder is only going to guarantee consistency and continuity of the Central Bank of Curaçao and Sint Maarten. But next to that, I'm asking myself, what is this Caribbean guilder bringing extra in our local economy that is going to benefit the people of this country? I am not getting for myself an answer on this question. And I think seeing the fact that the phase that we are in now with our country status, working hard to get a full-blown autonomy for our country, I think this is the right moment, especially now seeing the developments that they would like to introduce a Caribbean guilder for only two small islands in the world. I do believe that it's time now to think about a other monetary unit for the economy of Sint Maarten. And I'm very honest and thinking on two options. And as a political leader for this country, I dare to have a stance on that. And I do believe that we have to think on either dollarizing this economy or euroizing this economy. To start with dollarizing this country, that means that it will have consequences in general, but people always want to talk about the option of inflation by introducing the dollar as our monetary unit, what I do not believe in, that it will cause inflation in our economy. And the reason why I think that inflation will not be caused by introduction of the dollar is because we are already paying item prices in dollars in the local economy. So if we buy a soda in a supermarket, we are going to in general pay this soda in dollars. But the same soda is also being imported from abroad, and we are paying already to buy this soda in. We are already paying this in dollars to get it here. So I'm not an economist, but if our local economy is being paid for with the dollar, and we are using the same dollar to buy and import products to sell here on the market, if it's paid for to import it in dollars and we pay for it in dollars on the local market, I do not see how there will be space for inflation by introducing the dollar as the monetary unit for country St. Maarten. Another factor is, for example, that people think, and I can understand it, but we have to look at the benefits for the people. And Dr. Marcelina is here for the people of St. Maarten, for the future of the next generation of our people. And of course, the central bank will lose, and that is why they are a little scared too, because the central bank will lose its role as the lender of last resort for its banking system. We understand that. But Dr. Marcelina is not standing here only for the benefits of the central bank. Dr. Marcelina is standing here in mandate of the people of the country. And Dr. Marcelina does not see why introducing this dollar will hamper the people of this country. A local currency like we have now, a Netherlands Antillian guilder, is of course a symbol of a sovereign state. I understand it. But if we use, for example, the dollarization, the dollar, as a new currency, this will absolutely not damage the nation's sense of pride. I do not believe that by replacing our local currency with the dollar, that we are going to damage our nation's sense of pride. I do not believe in that. And on the other side, of course, the central bank thinks, what will be then my share if we introduce a dollar in this economy as a monetary unit and replace our local currency being the Netherlands Antilles, or replacing the planned Caribbean guilder. You will still need a central bank for the code of conduct supervision and for the supervision of prudential regulations. You need a central bank for that. And also you need the role of the central bank for the payment oversight. And of course you need a central bank for your crisis management, and in this case for a deposit guarantee scheme. You will have the need to have a central bank for those details in your country. But in general, I do not believe that we will have to only maintain and stay by the Netherlands Antillian guilder, or replace this local currency for a Caribbean guilder, just because there are benefits for the central bank and especially for the commercial banks of St. Maarten. A other option is also to not introduce the dollar to dollarize the local economy, but to introduce the euro, because on the French side, the euro is already a monetary unit for the local economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue on this topic of the currency that should be used in St. Maarten in the future. And I will touch a little also on the benefits to, for example, introduce a euro instead of a dollar. But we are running out of time. I'm going to take a small break and I will be back in a few minutes. Dear people of St. Maarten, welcome to the second half of our radio program, You Are St. Maarten. As you know, this radio program is being broadcast every week, every Wednesday evening from 6 to 7 p.m. And this You Are St. Maarten radio program is a program to inform the people of St. Maarten about what are the current developments and issues in their country that I think are of interest for them or for us. In the first half, I was talking about the necessities, those things that are necessary to carry a country as an autonomous country. And the last thing that I was discussing before taking a break was the idea to introduce the dollar, to dollarize this economy Instead of what is slowly happening in this country is the process of introducing a Caribbean guilder that I do believe will not be beneficial for the people of St. Maarten. And I'm a political leader. I'm standing for the people of this country because I really believe that there are great potentials for this country. And as a leader, I can take a stance on developments without having the fear to show where I'm standing in, for example, the monetary unit that we would like to introduce for our country, St. Maarten. And my preference would be to go to a dollarization of the economy, which I explained in the first half of my radio program. But another option is also to consider, instead of dollarizing our economy, is to evaluate the possibility to eurorize our economy and to introduce the euro. As we are in the recent past more and more talking about one St. Maarten with inclusion of the French side, realizing that the French side already has the euro as a monetary unit for their part of the island. Sometimes I think perhaps maybe it's even better for us to consider the euroization of the Dutch side, to have one monetary unit for the island St. Maarten, as we always propagate that we are one people and one island. And I do believe that that perception, that concept of being one people, one island, can also be fortified if we, for example, have some uniformity in our monetary unit. And if we realize that the French side is not doing bad with their euro, I was asking myself, why can we not uniform the monetary unit for island St. Maarten, considering that we are one people, and see to introduce the euro instead of the Netherlands Antilles guilders or the Caribbean guilder that is on its way. And once more, I want to accentuate that I do not see any action from the members of parliament considering their stance for a development that has been initiated already to replace the Netherlands Antilles guilders for a Caribbean guilder. I do not believe, as leader of the URSM, that introduction of a Caribbean guilder will be beneficial for the people of St. Maarten. I rather think that dollarization or euroization will be a better solution for the economy of country St. Maarten. So further, we have to think about the other aspects that makes a autonomous country strong, and that is, for example, education. So we spoke about 5 pillars already that makes a autonomous country, give it the full-fledged right to be an autonomous country. I spoke about the airport, I spoke about the harbor, I spoke of our utility company GEBE, and our telecommunication, and of course our healthcare, hospital care in this case. And I think that there are 2 more, and that is education and justice. Talking about education, we are, as I said, a country since 2010, and we have never asked ourselves, what is the type and level of education that we want for country St. Maarten? And that is a question that we should ask ourselves, because without asking ourselves this question, we will never have an education system that is going to serve the necessities on professional level for the community of St. Maarten. And the URSM, of course, thought about that, and URSM has a vision for education for country St. Maarten, that at the end of the day will deliver custom-made, educated people to fill in the professional, open vacancies in our country. We are a country from 10-10-10. We are now in 1023, in 2023. And until today, if we need a professional like a nurse, like a teacher, we still have to try to get these people from abroad. There is nothing wrong with that. We are very grateful that these people are coming to our island. And we are very, very happy with them because they help contributing to the further evolution of our country. But I'm asking myself every time again, how is it possible that we are so many years already a autonomous country? We have been working even once we were in the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles in educating our people, sending them away to study. And today, in 2023, if we need a teacher or if we need a nurse, it's almost impossible to get a person that has been educated in our country to help our people. So we will have to work very hard to see how we're going to deal with our education system in a way that it will be custom-made for the necessities for our society. So it's important for us to work on our education system. And unfortunately, not much is happening now with education. And we realize that actually the reason for this is that the ministry, actually the minister should have a vision about the type of education and the level of education and the quality of education that he should introduce to, at a certain moment, educate people that will fill in the necessary vacancies to help further develop this country. We have to work through education to see how we're going to increase our professional treasury for our country. And the only way to increase the professional treasury for your country, your human resources treasury for your country, is by working with your vision for education. Another one that helps in fortifying a autonomous country based on democratic principles in a democratic system is working on your justice. So I said you'd have the 5 evident pillars that carry an autonomous country: airport, harbor, utility, telecommunication, and healthcare. And once you have those 5 pillars at place, strong, carrying your community, you have to work further on a 6th and a 7th pillar, and that is the one of education and the one of justice. Before going over to justice, I would like to say something about education. And as I said, you have to have an educational system that is actually concentrated and focused to deliver people that are those that you need to increase your professional treasury of your autonomous country. Education as such is very, very important for our young country. Education is a precondition to arrive to a well-educated labor force. If you do not have the tool education as a precondition, you will not be able to get a well-educated labor force for your country. Education is actually also on the basis for economic growth. Everybody, when they talk about economy developments for a country, they always think about tourism. And I do believe that working on economic growth of your country is working on education as the base for your economic growth. And actually, we must accept that education is the basis for good living conditions of individuals, and that education also gives opportunities for individuals in a society. So education is very, very important in a country. And until now, unfortunately, I still have the feeling that governments have been neglecting the education system of the country without critically working on it to improve our education system in a way that it's going to effectively contribute to the human treasury, the professional human treasury of your country. Very important to work on education for your country. In the phase that we are in, that we are an autonomous country, we have a Dutch passport. And I want to state the following about our Dutch passport that I have much appreciation for. I'm very, very clear in this as the leader of the URSM, that I do believe that our country has a fantastic passport at this particular moment. And I do believe that we have to understand that the essence of a Sint Maarten shall never be lost simply due to the passport one holds. The Dutch passport, we have to acknowledge, has offered the island people great opportunities worldwide. Like, for example, enable our children to obtain quality education and quality degrees abroad. And also making it easy to get travel access worldwide. These are all thanks to our Dutch passport that we have. And I reiterate that the essence of a country, the essence of Sint Maarten, shall never be lost simply due to the passport one holds. And if you look at our passport, I think it's a fantastic passport for our country. And it has given our people a lot of opportunities, as I just said, in the world too. And further, we are benefiting from a great passport that has great acknowledgement in the world. And further, we realize that this passport, to have it, is also very expensive, and our contribution to maintain this passport is not much. What do I mean with that? You have, for example, to maintain a passport for a country, you have to have a large budget to protect your passport against falsifications. That is a big, big organization once you have your own passport. Another one is also you have to have a huge budget once you choose for a passport to guarantee continuity of safe printing of passports for your citizens. All those facilities of protecting against falsification and the printing of passports all fall under the kingdom, and those expenses fall under the kingdom of the Netherlands. And I think it's worth it to have a Dutch passport, and of course realizing that the whole infrastructure to maintain a passport is demanding such a high budget that at this particular moment it's being carried and shared by the kingdom government. And I think we have to look at the good parts of things that we have instead of always breaking it. We have to learn a lesson for ourselves about our Dutch passport. I'm happy that I have a Dutch passport. I have been today an educated man. Thank God to also the contribution of my Dutch passport. And living in Sint Maarten as a citizen, I realize how many foreigners are coming to this country with the dream and the hope to one day get a respectable passport as our Dutch passport. And we that are born with the privilege of this Dutch passport now are making statements like we want to distance ourselves from the Dutch passport. Ladies and gentlemen, I really think we have to think twice before we start opening this discussion. Further, we have the whole issue of defense. We say we want to be an independent country. I understand that. The Eurosam, at the end of the day, wants his people also to be independent, but the conditions must be there to guarantee a safe independence for country Sint Maarten. And now, for example, our defense falls under the kingdom, and we do not even have a budget to buy uniforms for the police people of our country and for the guardians of the prison. And now we are talking about independency and thinking that we can have a defense force to protect our country, our borders once we are independent. And we are not even in a situation now that we have a budget to buy uniforms for the police force for country Sint Maarten. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Messalina is a very straightforward man and is telling the people the truth. So let's stick to our autonomy, let's work towards our autonomy, and let's us make this autonomy a full-blown autonomy first, create the basis for resiliency for our people, and once we are in this prosperity, we are going to think further about one day having the independency status for the country. But let's start with first things first, working on the pillars, the 5 pillars being carried by the airport, harbor, utility, telecommunication, and healthcare being the hospital. And let's continue working on the 6th pillar being education by asking ourselves what type of education will serve this country better in the future, to contribute to enhance the professional treasury of the country. And let's work on our justice system, because if you have a failing justice system, you have a failing democratic system. So we will have to guarantee our justice and we will have to carry our democratic system with a stable justice organization. And that is the problem that we have now. We always want something else, but we have to be sure first that we have a well-organized, stable community before we can think on independence for country Sint Maarten. Important is our nation building. The nation building is what actually I have been explaining in this radio program, to work on the pillars that are going to make the country an autonomous, respectable country in the world. And that you can do with what I gave you as examples of fortifying the pillars, the 5 pillars, fortifying education, fortifying justice, introduction of a new monetary unit being dollar or the euro for country Sint Maarten, and in that way seeing how you can contribute in a way that you're going to make your country a strong, respectable country in the future, instead of, under the given circumstances that we're in, starting to scream that we want independence. Everything in life comes in steps, in phases, and we have to respect that also. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have given you some incentives about the autonomy for country Sint Maarten, what the Eurosam believes in first, that we have to fortify our autonomy of our country. And once we have a well-organized country with a strong economy, we will think further on steps to be taken to once in the future to become a independent country. But we are not so far yet in the phase that we're in now to start already now talking about independence, because if we do that, if Dr. Messalina is leading that process, he wants to give guarantee to his people, He wants to give resiliency to his people, and that's why it goes in phases of fortifying our autonomy first before we start working on the independence for country Sint Maarten. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it was a very interesting topic that I touched based on today. I hope that I gave you my vision, the vision of the URSM concerning the status that our country is in now, being an autonomous country, and that we think that we have to work further to develop more autonomy in the status that we have now, and future will show us if we have been successful to have the conditions there to start thinking about independence for country Sint Maarten. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure for me to today talk with you about this topic. I want to thank you for being today with us in this radio program, and I'm looking forward to have you back next week Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on Radio Mix 94.7 for our next edition, our next program. I wish you a pleasant evening.